So I'm here chilling in my dorm, right? Right. And I'm like, you know what? I'm bored. Let's get the podcast going again. And clearly I'm in my dorm. And don't worry, this isn't laundry up here, y'all. It's just blankets. That's a blanket. That's a blanket. Obviously I got my squishmallow, his name Buckaroo. So it's me and Buckaroo. And then, I ain't really make my bed that well because I sleep in it every night. So I make it like this. So then I can just climb back in and go to bed. But yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about today, but I just wanted to, put some content out there on my channel. I got a new mic, you know, got me a nice new mic. I still have my old one. I'll probably be using it for when I do like group sessions maybe, or I might just throw down the mic on a table. We'll see we'll see where I go from here. But yeah, today I just kind of want to talk, just to talk. I mean, I want content on my channel, so I got to upload something, right? Got to be consistent with it. But there's a lot going on in the world today, In the world of sports, we got March Madness starting, My Arizona Wildcats choked Princeton. Sorry to everybody who picked them. I did not pick them because I knew they would choke. Just not against Princeton. I thought I had them choking against Baylor. And Baylor choked too. Everybody's choking, man. We had Purdue. Purdue lost first round. That's the second time that's ever happened in NCAA tournament history. If you didn't know, the first was Virginia, and they lost 5 years ago, I think it was, 4 or 5 years ago now. And they were a 1 seed. And I had Virginia going all the way that year. That's what sucks. But I didn't have Purdue going all the way because Zach Edey is tough, but I just knew he wasn't going to get it done. I just had that feeling. I'm sorry, y'all, but I just had that feeling that he was not going to get it done. He's 7'4", but he's only one person, And the game's just, it's so evolved around outside scoring. And Zach Edey cannot shoot a three, I don't think. Or if he can, he didn't shoot any. I'm pretty sure the statistics. I stumbled that word. I'm pretty sure the statistics show, though, that Zach Edey has yet to take a three in his whole entire college career. Which doesn't surprise me because he's 7'4". But let's see who else lost. We had Virginia lost. I picked that upset, actually. And the only reason I picked that was because my boss at my internship, because I'm currently a college student doing an internship, so it's not a paid internship. But my boss had said he had done a thing where they like drafted teams or whatever for X amount of dollars or whatever it was, and he and his group had gotten Furman, and so basically they get points. So like if Furman beats Virginia like they did, then he would get points for that. He'd get like 5 points or whatever it is, whatever the scoring is. It's like a point or 5 points for the win. And then the seed difference, so like since Virginia was a 3 and Furman was a 14, he'd get 11 extra points on top of the 5 or the 1 or whatever it was that he had to begin with. But because of that, I picked Furman over Virginia. And I looked at the statistics, the stats and everything that ESPN provided, because that's what I use for the tournament, is the Tournament Challenge app. And I don't know, Virginia just looked suspect to me, and Furman just looked like they were hot. And usually when you're a hot team and going in the tournament and you can stay hot, you kind of pull through. And that's just how college basketball is too, though. It's like you see teams like Virginia and Arizona and all these other teams, that were good throughout the whole year. Purdue as well. They were good the whole year. And then they get upset. And we call it an upset, but it's just like Arizona, when I look at them, like Arizona started the season hot. They were, 8-0 to begin the season. They beat Michigan, who was ranked top 10 at the time, and they beat Creighton, who was ranked at the time. They beat Tennessee, who I think was number 2. Like at one point in the year, Arizona was ranked number 1 for a couple weeks. And then they started losing. They started losing to Utah in the Pac-12, which Utah did they even make the NIT? They didn't even make the big one, the big dance. Did they even make the NIT? How do you lose? Why are you getting upset by Utah? They lost to Arizona State in Tucson on a buzzer beater, which everybody kept talking about. That's the only reason Arizona State got in the tournament. Arizona State was finishing the season really solid. They're in the Pac-12 is the hardest, one of the hardest conferences to be in, because you got UCLA, who's always top dog, USC, who's always a top dog, Arizona, Oregon. They're always, one of those teams is always a top 25 team, regardless. Usually it's 2 of those teams. Stanford even, they're usually a top 25 team. Some years you'll see Utah, some years you'll see Arizona State be a top 25 team. There's just so many teams in the Pac-12 that year in and out, they're there's always going to be a Pac-12 team that's ranked. So it's not like one of those conferences, where it's just, oh, this nobody team that used to be D2 5 years ago won it. And I'm not saying like that's not to diss those D2 teams that are D1 or those teams that are in the conferences like the Sun Belt. I don't even know who's in the Sun Belt. I'm sorry, y'all. I need a refresher on it. But like people who the schools that are in those smaller conferences, you know what I mean? Like that nobody ever picks to win March Madness because they lack the talent, they lack the publicity to draw people into their school, they lack the funds even because scholarship money does help bring in talent. That's just the way it is. If you can get free tuition, you're going to take that over playing at your dream school any day. Or most of the time, I should say. But, yeah, like Arizona State beat Arizona, but they shouldn't have. Like, yeah, they beat them on a buzzer beater by 1 point in Tucson, but they shouldn't have lost to Arizona. They had no business losing to Arizona State. They had no business losing to Utah. They lose these Pac-12 games that they shouldn't lose. And me watching that, like, seeing how they played the second half of the season, I kind of knew they weren't going to come into March Madness and just blow everybody out and win it all. Like, they're not playing that great coming into the tournament. They peaked this season at the beginning of the season before the semester break, in my opinion. And I look at teams like Purdue. Purdue's been playing well all year. They were kind of up in like they were iffy at the middle of the season in my opinion, but then you see them at the end and they're playing well. So like the Purdue one, I would say is definitely an upset because it's just like they're the 1 seed. They're playing well towards the end of the year, and then they lost. Same thing with Virginia. Virginia started off pretty solid, but they did not finish out that well. But you want to know like a sleeper team in here, and I don't know. I just love this statistic. I am an analytical guy, but I'm also like just see it like call it for how it is and what it is. But like you look at a team like North Carolina was what number 1 at the beginning of the year, and then they finished the season unranked, and that's because like North Carolina was playing well last year. Their team's literally like the exact same, other than they lost Brady Manick and they brought in Pete Nance. But for the most part, like their core is the same. They still have Caleb Love, they still have R.J. Davis, they still have Leaky Black, Armando Bacot, and like to me, the big difference for them, they still got Puff Johnson. Shout out to Puff Johnson and Cam Johnson. I love Cam when he was with the Suns. But they started off solid, I suppose, at the beginning of the season, and then the middle of the season, they weren't the UNC team we're used to seeing. And then the end of the year, they started getting hot again, but I don't know what, it just went wrong. Like, it just didn't work for them. Whatever it was, they did not finish well. And obviously they needed to win the ACC tournament to get into the big dance, and they didn't. But the ACC is also a tough conference. You get Louisville and Virginia and Duke and all these other schools that are blue bloods. UNC's in the ACC, obviously. Syracuse is in the ACC. You have so many schools that are in the ACC that are always top 25. Like I guarantee you, like the ACC usually has 4 teams that are top 25 in most sports every year. Like the ACC is a legit sports conference, and you have to stay on top to be on top. Obviously, like that's a no-brainer. That's a no duh. And UNC just did not do that this year. But then, like, you look at teams like Connecticut. They started off the season unranked, finished ranked, but, like, look at how well they were playing. They didn't start off the season by playing crazy great, like, oh, this team needs to be the number 1 team. They started off like, okay, they're winning. They're winning games that they should win. They're winning games that could go either way, those tight ones against the top 25 schools and such. And then they finished the season on top, like just playing well and finished ranked. And when you see a team that finishes playing well and is playing well going into conference tournaments and playing well going into the NCAA tournament, you should tend to like lean towards those teams, like to pick them for your brackets for one, but also just to be the favorites to win it. It's like, why do we have teams like if a top 25 team they go 500 even in their last 10 games. Why are we picking them to win it all in March Madness? If a top 25 team, like, I'm sorry, Houston's good, they're legit. Don't take this as me saying they suck. But they have no business being a 1 seed in my opinion. They have 3 losses on the year, 2 to Memphis, 1 to Alabama, but it's like those are the hardest schools they played. and Memphis isn't even in the tournament anymore. Memphis beat them in the conference championship. And it's like those are the hardest schools they played were Alabama and Memphis. I mean, I'm sure they played another one like St. Mary's. They played St. Mary's has been solid all year, but like St. Mary's to me, they're good, but they're the same boat as Memphis. They're not like they just don't have those. They didn't play those games or those teams that are like, oh, we need to put them in. Like, if a team plays 10 top 25 schools and goes 500 in the top 25 games, or even if they have a losing record in the top 25 games, I'm going to most likely favor those for higher seeds and better seedings and my bracket selections over a team that hasn't played a top 25 school all year. It doesn't matter. Like, Princeton played, one top 25 school year all year? And Arizona played like 8. So, of course, I'm going to pick Arizona just because they've had, one, they have like the team to actually win it, but two, like, they've just played harder teams all year. I don't know why. Like, I just favor the teams that hang, beat, and play the harder teams all year. And like, it's one thing. Like, if you're playing those top 25 teams and you go 0-8 against top 25 teams and they were all 20-point blowouts, yeah, I'm not going to pick you. But it's like, it's a different story when you play one top 25 team and then you get ranked number 1 in the country, but you just, like, you haven't played any talented teams or like legit schools to like prove that you deserve to be number 1, you know? It's like, to be the best, you got to beat the best. But, and I get it, like, there's thousands of schools at the Division I level, so like, obviously Houston can't play every single school to prove that they're the best, but it's like, why not schedule a Duke? Why not schedule one of these teams that's top dog? Like, especially if you think that you have the team and the players on your team to beat those top dogs. Like, if you think you got a team that could beat Duke, why not play Duke? Why not schedule Duke? Like, I get it. There's money. There's all these issues into it, but it's like both teams benefit. It's a win. It's not a win-win, but it's like, if you win, your team gets ranked higher. You get whatever. Like, yeah, it's just, I don't understand why teams wouldn't want, like, if you think you have a chance of winning a national tournament, like, or a national championship, why wouldn't you want to schedule the better teams and the harder teams to prove during the season that you're legit, just to help, like, even with your seating at the end, or even like at large bids. I don't understand it. And then, like, for the tournament community to like rank these teams as high as they did, like, I truly don't think that this year's like seeding for the national tournament is legit. Like, Princeton's not a true 15 seed. I don't think Arizona was a true 2 seed. UCLA deserves to be a 1 seed in my opinion. They've played well all year, very consistent all year, despite losing a key player. Michigan State, what are they, an 11, I think, or 9? That's not true. UConn should be higher. Purdue, you can maybe keep them as a 1. Houston maybe as a 1. I don't know. Alabama deserves to be a 1. Texas should for sure be a 1. Texas, man, they need to hire that coach. I can't think of his name right now, but props to him. He's been coaching really well, and they have him as an interim head coach. He should be your full-time head coach. I agree with what like KD and Shaq both said about that. And like, man, there's just teams that aren't true 15 and 1 seeds. Like, was it Furman or Fairleigh Dickinson? One of them, I don't remember which school it was. They lost to Merrimack in the conference championship for the second year in a row. Not just the first year in a row, the second year in a row. And Merrimack can't play in the national tournament. And this needs to have more coverage, in my opinion. They can't play in the national tournament. They're like, got some in my eye, I'm sorry. But they're like not eligible for postseason tournament play and postseason games other than the conference tournament because they were a D2, a Division II, NCAA Division II school 2 years ago. And they made the jump to D1, and the NCAA has a rule saying that when you make that jump from D3 to D2 or D2 to D1, all that, you can't play in the postseason for 4 years so that you can get acclimated to playing at that level. So Merrimack went from D2 to D1, and now they can't play in the postseason for 4 years because they want them to get adjusted to it. But here's the catch to me. They've won their conference tournament the first year that they jumped up to D1 and the second year now that they've jumped up to D1. And that's 2 years in a row. Like, they've won twice in a row. So I get it. Like, you win the conference your first year there, and it's like, oh, maybe it's a hoax. Or not a hoax, but like maybe they did it. Just whatever. Like, it was they just happen to win. They just happen to play well, or injuries, or whatever the circumstances be. But when they do it 2 years in a row and they have 2 great seasons back to back with the people on their team, like the players that they have on their team and everything being pretty similar to when they're at the D2 level, it's like, why not let them play? Like, I would have seen that as the NCAA and been like, you know what, we have this rule. 4 teams, because like it's not the rule isn't the issue. Like it's nice for if you're a bad team and you're just getting killed in your conference and stuff, and you need the Division 1 money and Division 1 like name to recruit better players. That's cool. Like, keep them from the postseason. Like, obviously they're not going to make it if they're not doing well. It's like if a team's playing well, like Merrimack had like what 8 losses on the year, and I get it. They didn't play any like crazy schools. Like they didn't play Houston, they didn't play Duke, they didn't play anyone who's top 25, but they won that many games. They won their conference tournament 2 years in a row. It's like, why not say, okay, we have this rule, but let's make an exception this year to see what they do? Because what happens? Yeah, it was FDU. It was Fairleigh Dickinson that was in the same conference as them. So it's like, what happens if they go into play and they win that first round like Fairleigh Dickinson did, and then they go and play the second round against Florida Atlantic, was it, I believe, and they beat Florida Atlantic, and now you got this 15, 16 seed. I think they were a 16 seed, FDU was. And you have the 16 seed that's now going into the Sweet 16 for the first time ever, because that's never happened before. And then say they win that, and then you have this, you just got this team that's like, okay, 2 years ago they were Division 2, now they're competing. Anybody can do it, you know what I mean? I just think it would have brought even more money in for the NCAA, but I think they need to make an exception for that rule in that case, because Merrimack's been playing really well all year. I actually watched that conference championship game, and Merrimack's a short team, and they played in a really crazy zone concept. Like, they were in a 2-3 zone until it became dribble penetration or dribble drive, and then they just scramble into a man defense, which I know like a lot of schools do that, but I don't know, it's just something about this Merrimack defense that looked really like unique to me, and I just liked it. I became a fan at that instant, so I started pulling for Merrimack, and they ended up winning it. It was close. Like, FDU was still in the game. They weren't like a bad team. Like, Merrimack didn't just blow them out. But it's just like, to me, like, you should look at that like, okay, let's make exceptions for this, especially this year, having FDU upsetting a 1 seed now and making it to the round of 32. I think the NCAA really needs to take a gander at that rule and be like, you know what, this is what we need. But yeah, like, it's what, Thursday? It's Thursday tonight. We got the Sweet 16 starting right now as I'm making this video, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see who wins. I've got UConn going all the way, and I'm hoping they do, because I don't know. The last time I won a tournament challenge bracket was in 2014 when UConn won it, and they look legit again this year, and I'm just like, I've been pulling for them since round 1. But we'll see. I mean, if UConn doesn't do it, it is what it is. But that's who I'm pulling for right now. Since Arizona's out, I'm an Arizona fan like through and through, but they're out, so I'm pulling for UConn because that's where my brackets are at. I think I got them playing UCLA, but my bro Elijah, he picked UCLA to win it, because he's a Cali boy, he's a Cali product himself, and he picked UCLA to win it. So I got to pick against him. I want UCLA to lose to Gonzaga and go from there. I'm sorry, Elijah, but I got to go for my bracket, dog. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this video so I can watch those games, make some food, live my college dorm life. But I didn't know what to talk about, so this is just what was on my mind. And hopefully, like, I'm going to have more videos, obviously, and I'm going to start bringing people in. We're going to have sit-down sessions where we just chit-chat, like the Whatever podcast, but about whatever, literally whatever. Not like, we'll talk basketball, we'll talk God, we'll talk like other sports, we'll talk life, we'll talk games, whatever. Like, y'all DM me or hit me up, let me know in the comments what you want us to talk about even, and we'll do that up too. Like, I'm just trying to grow this channel, because like, if I could get paid for just sitting here and talking like other people on YouTube and on Twitch and all these other Spotify, even like just chit-chatting with podcasts, doing what I love. If I could get paid to do that, that'd be awesome. So like, if y'all feel like subscribing, go ahead. If y'all feel like you hate this video, dislike it. I don't care. Like, you're not going to offend me. But y'all should subscribe. I mean, because, if you ain't with me, you're a hater. And, I just, sub to me, man. But, and women and whatever. But yeah, I'm going to let y'all go. I'll check y'all later. Peace.